Hi everyone, welcome back to the web scraping with Python tutorial series. In today's video, we're going to continue working with the IMDb most popular movies page. And the specific example we're going to cover today is a common one you'll see across many websites, and that's when you have data spread across multiple subpages. So what I mean by that is, say for example, you wanted to grab the casts or like directors for each of these movies. You'll notice that the data isn't on this one page, but rather within each of the individual movie pages. So we need to be able to access these subpages in order to grab the data. So there's two ways to really tackle that. One is using Beautifulsoup, just grabbing the link and then from the link of the subpage, grabbing the data through each of the links. The second option is to use Selenium, which is a web automation package in Python. And that one involves more just the WebDriver, what enables you to do the automation, clicking through each of these links and then grabbing the data from that. But in today's video, we're just going to cover Beautifulsoup, and I'll cover Selenium in a future video. But before I get started, I just want to plug a resource I made. So if you're just learning web scraping, I created this cheat sheet, which has a lot of common functions that you'll use in web scraping. I was personally inspired to create it since I often find myself Googling or these days like ChatGPTing a specific function. So I basically compiled all of the common tasks I run into one resource. So I'll link that below, and be sure to download that if you do find yourself web scraping, and I'll be referencing that a little bit today as well. So let's go to VS Code and start with our example. So the first thing you're going to want to do, as always, is import your packages. So today we'll be using Beautifulsoup and requests. And then we'll also be using RE or RE, I don't know. It's the regular expression package in Python. So that is the that's when you're basically just matching text to these text patterns. So it helps you find specific text patterns basically, which is something you do quite a bit with web scraping. So we'll import these by running this cell. And the first thing after that is grabbing the URL of the web page you're working with. So that's again the most popular movies page. And from there, first I'm actually going to indent that and just show you guys what happens if we run request right now. So for some reason, I didn't run into this with my last video, but I do now in today's, where I get a response 403, which means forbidden. So if we print out the content of the request, you'll see there is no HTML. It's basically just saying you don't have access, right? And a lot of websites do this, where they prevent people from accessing their data through a web scraper. So one workaround is you can add this headers parameter, which basically disguises your web scraper as like a human user. So it's basically saying we're accessing this from a Mozilla Firefox web browser. So now if we uncomment the soup object and run it again, we should be able to access the data. And one way you can verify this is printing out an object that you know the HTML should have. So I know there should be a table here. So if we call soup.findTable and print it out, oops, this one collapsed. You'll see that we do have the table. So that means the request was successful. Okay, so now that we have our table, what we want to do is access again the links here, right? The hrefs. So you'll notice that the data we want is within each of these A tags. However, these A tags don't have a unique identifier, but their parents, the TD tags, they do with the class title column. So we can access the data by first accessing the TD tags, and then from there accessing the A tags and their href attributes. So let's walk through how to do that. The first thing we're going to do is first grab the TD columns, right? So we'll use soup.find all, find all TD tags with this class title column. And if we print it out here with the list comprehension, you'll see we did grab that. So from there, we want to grab the A tag for each of these TDs. And that's why I'm using this list comprehension here. Because if we just did, for example, title column dot find A, you'll see we get an error that's saying that this result set does not have an attribute find. You're probably treating this list of elements like a single element. So we need to call the find function on each of the T's, not the entire title column list. So we can type .find A or also just .a since it's a tag. So if we run that, now we have all the A tags. And from there we want the hrefs. So we type .get to get an attribute and get href. Okay. So notice these aren't the full URLs for the movies. And you'll see, like, if you try pasting that, there's no HTTP or any of that, so this doesn't lead to a valid web page. So I just found the part that was missing by clicking one of these links. You'll see that it's just the imdb.com that's missing. So I just defined that here using base URL. So we first define that. And then what we basically need to do is just append that to our URLs. And if we do that, you'll see we have a list of valid links. And they're also highlighted in blue, which is probably a good hint that they're working. So if we open that, we do see that indeed this is the page we're looking for. So now that we have this list of pages to scrape, I'm going to assign that to a variable called links. Okay, and this is the kind of pattern I work through with all my web scraping problems that are like this. You basically just use a for loop and then loop through each of the links, redefine the soup object for each of those pages, and then once you're on this specific page, you just grab the data you're looking for. Just for the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to only loop through the first two elements on our list rather than all of them, but the same logic should apply. So the first thing we're going to want to do is go to our page and inspect the data we're looking for again, right? So open inspector and then use this selection tool to inspect our data here. So you'll see that our data that we're looking for is within these list items inside this unordered list. But again, we run into this issue where the identifiers for these items aren't super intuitive. Like, we could try copying all of this in, but I think there's a more elegant solution. And at the same time, I can teach you guys some other tricks with web scraping. And that's using the idea of siblings and parents. So the basic idea of that is you'll notice that there are elements nested within other elements, right? So the nested elements are called like children of the parent. So like, for example, the A tag here is the child. The list item tag is the element or the parent. And then for siblings, these list item tags are siblings because they're on the same level, right, within the tree. So you can use these relationships to navigate our HTML instead of just searching for a specific item, right? So in this case where there isn't a clear identifier, this is where it could be handy. And we're going to use that here. So you'll notice that all of these tags here at all these levels don't really have great identifiers. So we're going to use a sort of hacky trick. And this is where regex comes in. So you'll notice that these items have a sibling, right, in this A tag here. And you can technically identify it using its text, stars. And if we refer to our cheat sheet here, the way you can identify elements by its text is using the string parameter in the find object. So what this does, it'll look for the specific text within the HTML. So let's try this out actually. If we just call soup.find stars and then print that out, let's see what happens. Okay, so that just returns the text stars, right? It doesn't return the element. What we need to do is call dot parent. So the parent of the text itself would be the element. So if we just add a dot parent there, now we have the A tags that we were looking at here, right? So I actually lied. We don't need regex for this specific example, but in other cases where the string isn't a specific match, or maybe you're looking for multiple strings that match a pattern, that's when you'll use regex. So I guess today I lied. You don't need that. You can delete that, I guess. But yeah, now that we have this A tag, let's assign that to a variable. Let's call it stars label. And then from there, we can use this function, next sibling. So if we just call next sibling, let's first see what that does. Star else, oops, print star else. Now we have the div with the unordered list. So we're looking at this element here, right? So this is the element that has our data. So we're getting closer. So from there, we can just call find all A tags, or you could also call unordered list, or sorry, not unordered list, the list item. Either of them works because both of these contain the, whoops, sorry, wrong one. This list item, both of these contain the actor name, right? So let's actually try the list item and see if that works, right? So we call list item, you see we have that here. And now that we have the elements, you guys know what to do. We create a list comprehension and we call .text on each of these list items to grab the name. So let's print out these stars. And then let's see. Okay, great. You'll see we have the top 3 stars for each of these movies, which is what we want. And the last thing you need to do is just append that data into some sort of container. So what I like to do is create a list with each of the columns you're trying to collect. So in this case, our stars. I'll just append each of these lists of stars into the master list for all of these movies, right? And then with that done, we now have, if I run this again, this list of lists. So or basically just a list of all the stars for each movie, right? And that would be like a column within your data frame. And you can do this for the director, the writers. It would be the same sort of pattern here, right? So I'll leave that as an exercise to you guys. But other than that, that's pretty much it for this video. In the next video, I'll start talking about Selenium. So until then, hopefully you found this video useful. Thanks.